Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Bibbo, President and CFO of JL Smith Holistic Wealth Management. I'm stepping in for Jason today to introduce part 2 of his conversation with Dr. Linda Travelute, founder of Maximize Leaders and creator of the Limitless Group Coaching Program. In this episode, Jason and Dr. Linda explore what it means to build a true growth plan, one grounded in daily habits like reading, writing, reflection, exercising, and spiritual practice. They also dig into the role of intentionality, how your environment shapes your progress, and why surrounding yourself with high performers matter. Finally, Dr. Linda shares powerful insights on continuous learning, evolving as a leader, and the ways her coaching approach can help unlock untapped potential. We hope you enjoy.
So then this going back to kind of this never stale strategy, right?
Yeah.
That's ultimately that's a mindset and that's a lifestyle, right? Of like you basically, create that almost like that is just the way you are, right?
Yeah.
It is what I would say, the most successful leaders, at least I know, right? It's ingrained into their soul. Let's just talk about like how could our listeners that want to get even better in that area, how can they build their own kind of strategy of like never stay strategy in regard
Yeah.
to
Yeah. So I think it requires a growth plan. And if you think about it, we are probably more apt to spend time designing our home or picking out the color scheme for our office, or maybe even researching the kind of car we want. We spend more time doing those things than we do designing our growth plan, which affects our success, our future. And so I suggest people create a growth plan. And what could that look like? Pick some areas where you know you need to grow and spend some time there every day. It could be as little as 15 minutes. But here's something that I do, which you've probably heard this, Jason, from John Maxwell. He has a rule of 5. So every day he does 5 things. And so for me, I'll just share as an example what my rule of 5 is. Every morning without fail, I read, and sometimes it's only 15 minutes. I write. I take time to write because I create a lot of content. I create podcast content. I create courses, newsletters, things like that, news articles for media. So I write every day. I want to stay sharp there. So I read, I write, I think. I actually block out time to think. I work out. And I'm a person of faith, so I read my Bible and I pray. Now, that's not everybody. Everybody's going to have a different rule of 5. But that's my 5. That's my 5. And so every day I do those things and they compound, right? We love that word in the financial arena. It compounds. And so because that's my rule of 5, that's like the way I grow. And you throw in that exercise at the end of the day where you're looking at where could I adjust things to be better, or even throwing out questions to the people around me, whether it be my spouse, my best friend, my children. Hey, where did I miss it today? How could I have served you better? And just being open to that feedback so I can adjust. That's a growth plan right there. It's not complicated. It's easy peasy. Yeah.
Yeah. That reminds me, like going back to my journaling method, I have a mantra and I have a top 5, right? That I rewrite every day that I journal, and to keep it front of mind. And a lot of what you just said is part of it, right?
Yeah.
Leading and learning, and, Jesus is one of them. And like kind of always having that filter of like, what would Jesus do? I don't care what religion you are or what you believe. If you study like Jesus and the way he lived his life, if you do that, you're going to be a pretty good person. It doesn't matter what religion or what it is. I mean, he made all the right decisions, right? And the way he kind of operated. So you know what else I thought of, Linda? It's so funny. As you were talking about year 5, I was thinking about my children, and I was thinking about like, now we're very blessed. They go to, a private school that is really a leadership development kind of Montessori base, but Christian influence as well, foundationally. And as you described your 5, what popped in my head is like, wow, I'm so blessed because my kids are doing those top 5 every single day of their life.
Wow.
And then what I started thinking about is like, it's truly like providing leadership in a successful environment for children to grow and flourish. Those 5 things that you described, right, are really the key criteria, right? They got to think, they got to read, they got to write, they got to pray, right? Yeah. And then what was the 4th? It was I missed one.
Let's see. Read, write, think, pray, work out. Was that it?
Work out. Yeah, exercise, right? So they're doing all 5 of those things. And it's like, I think as adults, we lose sight of the importance of all 5 of those things, right? And like continuing that forward. And unfortunately, a lot of our traditional school system loses sight of kind of all 5 of those things being important, right?
So true. So true. Well, it's awesome being that example for your kids. And I'll tell you, they remember, because my kids are adults now, and they have friends every once in a while that remember coming to our house and hanging out and knowing that, their mom spent her time every day working out and reading her Bible or reading other things. And they'll ask, hey, does your mom still do that? I mean, is that something she just talked about from the stage, or is that something she actually did? And they'll say, no, she still does it to this day. I'm in my 50s and I worked out for 30 minutes today and I went for a walk. And that's never going to change. And that's how I can stay in peak performance, so I can be better for my family, better for my clients, better for society as a whole. I want to make a difference, and I need to know, or in order to do that, I need to be in good shape and have good stamina to be able to just keep chugging along at full speed. Yeah. So
just to kind of pile on and reinforce kind of year 5, I really love this. I want to spend a little more time here, like, the reading, right?
Yeah.
Always learning, right?
Yeah.
Always evolving, always growing, even a little bit at a time, 15 minutes. The writing, reflecting, right? Like clarifying your own thoughts, right? And like, even like I write a lot of times to reflect in my journaling of what worked and what didn't work. And then my creative mind kicks in, and then I'll flip a page or 2 forward in my journal, and I'll just go into creative mode. And then I'll go back and finish kind of my process or journaling. But so much comes out, when you just start flowing, when you're writing. And then thinking, I think the big mistake I've made in the past as a leader is I overscheduled myself to where I was one to the next, to the next, to the next. And it was like, there was no thinking time. There was no downtime. And what I've done now is I've like really intentionally made sure I have a lot of blank space time.
Yes.
And like, it's funny because like my assistant will look at my calendar and be like, he's not working, right? You know what I mean? Right. It could be that. But in reality, I always fill that time, right? Because I'm thinking, and then it might spur a phone call, or I'm thinking and it might spur an email or a text, or, whatever it might be, or writing more, or just thinking. But that thinking time is just so crucial, right? And whether you did, regardless of your, religious beliefs or whatever, if you're not praying, you need to meditate, right? Or ideally you do both, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because that taps into, I think, like some type of creativity in the back of your mind, and brings it from the subconscious to the conscious. And, and at the end of the day, you really do kind of manifest those things that you pray or meditate or, kind of put out there into the world. Right. And they tend to, at least for me, come true. And most leaders that I talk to that spend the intentional time doing those things.
That's it. The word's intentional right there. I mean, you just gave the secret sauce, Jason. It's got to be intentional. We can't half it. I was gonna, you know what I'm saying?
Half
I,
after it, yeah.
I'm not a person to cuss, so but you just can't go at it randomly. A lot of people have these random growth spurts, and I'm like, shoot, why don't you just put a plan in place and be intentional, and then stop with the random growth spurts, have them every day, and then you'd be more successful and get what you want, right? And yeah, it requires thinking, that think time. I love that you have margin in your schedule, because that's I fight with my clients to create that margin, because they're always, they don't ever have time for emergencies that you know wreak havoc in their lives, and then they're so exhausted. But you're right, the thinking, that is the secret sauce to success, because there's, if you're going to come up with new ideas and ways to serve other people, you got to have time to think. Yeah.
And Linda, to your point on I've never heard it put that way, like the margin, right? The kind of blank space in your calendar, right?
Yeah.
Is what you're referring to. But like as a leader, you have to solve sometimes some of the usually the toughest challenges, right? And when you are so overscheduled and wrapped up in boom, to do, and then all of a sudden you got to solve a big problem or support one of your team members in helping them solve a big problem, and you're trying to rush because you're late for the next meeting and you don't have time for them, and they sense that. I mean, all kinds of bad things, right?
Yep.
Spiral out of that.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you, man. We could do a 2-day podcast here. Yeah, good stuff. My favorite topics here. Yeah.
Yeah, you and I are like brother and sister from another mother or something.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yes.
So one last thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is a fun one too, because I'm a big believer in that. I'm Benjamin Hardy. I don't know if you've ever read any of his stuff, but he's like, willpower doesn't work. That was one of my favorite books of his. And he talks about the environment being so key, right? And really being very intentional around your environment, right? Like an alcoholic, you don't want to be hanging out in bars, you know what I mean? Like, or take all the alcohol out of your house, right? Like, I mean, it's like some simple stuff, right? But let's talk a little bit about, environment, and how does who you surround yourself with impact whether you grow or stay stagnant?
Yeah. Oh, that's so good, because studies have shown of recent that not only, like, if you're in an office environment, okay, let's just use this as an example. If you have a high performer next to you, maybe next to your office, or if you're in a cubicle or in the same workspace, you will be more productive. If they are a high performer and highly productive, you'll be more productive. The opposite is also true. If you have a low performer in your space, all they have to do is exist in your space, you will also have lower productivity. Your productivity will tank. So it's very, very important, even when we think about stacking our teams, to make sure that we have high performers on the team, because if we have low performers, they are affecting the whole workforce. So with that, I am so picky about who I hang out with. They have got to be people who are driven, people who are in growth mode, continuous growth mode, not just every once in a while. Like, I have these, what I call Red Bull friends. Now, I don't drink Red Bull because really it's not good for you, but I love the idea of being energized when you're with people, right? I can tell, like, you, Jason, are a Red Bull person. Like, I bet we could go out to lunch and we would have a blast talking about growth and development, new ideas. And so I've got some friends. In fact, my husband and I are going to have dinner Saturday night with friends of ours, Ken and Kelly. And when we're with Ken and Kelly, man, we are talking about ideas and different leadership topics and strategy and business and just life. But man, we come away just high on, just all these incredible higher level ideas. We're not talking about people. We're not talking about just the weather. We're going to that next level where we're inspiring each other. We are pulling out of each other nuggets of wisdom so that we can grow from one another. We test each other. We hold each other accountable. Those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with. And I had a client recently. She was an executive at ESPN, and she she had a hard time finding people to hang out with that were at this place, okay? And so she was with a friend of hers, and this friend actually said to her, "You're not normal." And she's like, she took offense to that. She's like, "What do you mean I'm not normal?" She goes,
Yeah.
well, you're just not like the rest of us. I mean, you don't watch Netflix and know about the top 10 Netflix series." She goes, you're just into documentaries and all these master series, and she came to my coaching call with this on her heart. And I said, "You know what?
Yeah.
Let's take that as a compliment that you're not normal. Because
Right.
if that's normal, you don't want to be that. You want to get to that next level. Be
Right.
abnormal. Be that person who pushes the envelope. Be growing and surround yourself with." I told her she needs to change her circle of friends, because
Yep.
that's not people that's going to help her grow, and that's not who I want to hang out with. So, I want to be with people that makes me better just by being around them. So I think that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah, a coach of mine years ago, his name's Dan Sullivan, a strategic coach,
Mhm,
and
mhm,
he,
mhm.
shared with me this concept of like who's in your room,
Yeah,
and you're most like, I don't remember if it was 10 or 20, the top 10 or 20 people that you spend the bulk of your time with. And this concept's been around forever, and
yeah,
I know, but it really hit home with me of like, who is in your room? And he had us go through a thinking exercise and kind of document, I think it was the top 20 people that you spend 90% of your time with. And it wrote it down, and then go through each one of them and think about their traits and how they act, and are those the people that you want in
right.
your room? Because you are going to act and be
Yes.
most like those people that you spend the bulk of your time with. And that's always really stuck with me, because even right now we're going through an evolution of our companies the last couple of years of like, we only want A players, right? And we want a high performance culture, and like, because it spreads, right? Like mediocrity or low performance or certain attitudes kind of can permeate, right? And bring down, the culture and the performance of others, just like you were talking about a little bit ago. And so yeah, so I think there's so much truth to that. And a handful of years ago, I kind of felt like I was in that place where it was like some of my relationships shouldn't be in my room anymore,
Yeah.
right? And it was tough, but I intentionally sought out, two new affiliations that I could, I put myself into a room where I could grow. I joined a CEO kind of YPO. It is.
Mhm,
You may have
mhm.
be familiar with it, and I was somewhat of a smaller company, and it's pretty big bar. You have to have like really, like, I don't know, 25 million in revenue and at
Mhm,
least 50
mhm.
employees or something like that. And at the time when I joined, it was like I was a little nervous, like, am I going to be able to get in?
Right.
Like, you can only count one company, not both. But I've been able to surround myself with people that are more successful than me in business, have more knowledge, more experience, and I've learned tremendous amounts from them. And then, also the school that my kids were going to, we were around people that just like we didn't feel like we were being enriched or really growing from them. So we sought out this other school, Acton Academy, which was, more leadership development, entrepreneurial, Christian based. And we've built amazing relationships over the last handful of years with families that we're learning and growing as parents, and based on like how great of parents they are. And
Yeah.
so it's a good example of like always evolving and always kind of looking at like who's in your room, right?
Yep.
Who are you spending 90% of your time with? And do you need to replace? And sometimes it's your own family that you got to
Yeah.
look at
Yeah.
and say, like, listen, you can still see them at holidays and this, that, and the other, but do you really want them in the room where you're spending 90% of your time?
That's right. That's right. I agree with you. Just pull back a little bit. Less time with that. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you.
Linda, what a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much. You pulled so much out of me that I don't even think about, you know what I mean? That
How fun.
just are lessons you learn throughout life in being coached. But tell us a little bit more about how you support leaders and entrepreneurs and business people and doctors and attorneys and, people that you have talked about in case they want to spend some more time and maybe put you into their work.
Sure, sure. Well, we love working with leaders and business owners, even entrepreneurs, as well as the government space. But I know most of your listeners are in the private sector, and we do one-on-one coaching. Myself and my team love that. Love that. Also have some incredible group coaching programs where we go on site and work with folks in their organization. But also, this is a great entry level into the world of Maximize Leaders is something called Limitless Leaders and Mindset Coaching. And that is a virtual coaching program that I do twice a month, every other Thursday, and we do it via Zoom. We do it during the lunch hour, so it's really cool. People come with their lunch and we hang out. I share a leadership and mindset skill building topic, and then we discuss and we help people move the needle forward. So it's leadership skill, focus, and mindset. And sometimes we dive into some of the most current leadership books and mindset books, and we tackle those. There are coaching hot seats. So that's something that might be of interest, especially for folks that are trying to DIY their leadership and growth plan. Here's an opportunity to let somebody else do that for them. And it's not going to be random. It's going to be, I'm going to keep you on track. I'm going to push you forward, and you get interaction. The calls are recorded, but we'll drop the link in your show notes for your podcast where they can click on that and find out more. And then too, if they are interested in the Leader Fuel podcast, would love to serve in that capacity. Of course, that's on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Audible. Every week, a new episode drops, and I tackle some of the funnest leadership topics. As you can tell, I love the topic of leadership because I feel like if people become better leaders, they will have more influence on the world for good, and that's what it's all about. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Linda, so much thanks for being on here with us today.
Yeah.
And God bless you. I appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC-registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the investment advisor public disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.